Getting the right exposure on a camera is all about changing how much light hits the sensor, and our main way of doing that has remained unchanged since the dawn of photography, and that's aperture. The aperture on your camera exists within the lens, and it affects how much light comes through that lens and into the camera. Now this will do several things, but its main function is to make your image brighter or darker as needed. This is an important part of what we call the exposure triangle, but we're going to cover that in another video. So we describe aperture in f-stops, or sometimes t-stops on cinema lenses. F-stops refers to how wide open your aperture is. A smaller number means a wider aperture, which will let more light in. So the higher the number, the less light will be hitting your camera's sensor. Each lens has a maximum widest aperture, which is a very important factor when you're choosing which lens to use. For example, this 50mm prime lens has a maximum aperture of f1.4, whereas this zoom lens has a maximum aperture of f4. So what that means is that the prime lens is going to be able to let in far more light when it's wide open than this one is. Often lenses will have two f-stops displayed. For example, a lens might be an f3.5 to f5.6. This means that the maximum aperture is going to change as you zoom that lens. When you're zoomed all the way in, you won't be able to open your aperture as wide as you can when you're zoomed all the way out. So a lower f-stop number will let in more light, and a higher one will let in less, and we use this to change our exposure. But that's not the only thing that aperture will affect. The aperture that you use will have a direct impact on your depth of field. So if you use a wider aperture, you let in more light, that will mean that less of your image is going to be in focus. And the areas that aren't in focus, like the background behind me, will soften and blur more. We call those out of focus areas bokeh. And so, for example, you might often hear camera operators saying that they prefer the bokeh of one lens over another. So if you want to throw your background out of focus and isolate your subject, you would open up your aperture to a lower f-stop. For example, here is a shot of me at f1.4, and then here's the same shot at f8. See how the background is far more out of focus on the f1.4 shot. Normally, this is a good thing, as it focuses your attention on the subject and it makes the whole shot more attractive, but it does have its downsides. For example, if I take a small step forward, you'll see that in the shot at f8, I am still in focus, whereas in the shot at f1.4, I definitely am not. So, not only does changing the aperture affect how light or dark your exposure is, but it also changes your depth of field. So thanks for watching, and if you want to see the rest of this series on camera basics, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I hope that was helpful, and if you have any questions at all, please just leave a comment below and I'll do my best to get back to you.